I'm glad this album's only recommending us to be a giant for a day. I don't think I could last any longer. Welcome back to Fallen from Grace, those albums from reputable progressive rock bands that have put out some albums that just make you think,
your music's bad and you should feel bad.
And today we're looking at one that is a little bit of an interesting one from the UK band of Gentle Giant. And Gentle Giant is one of those bands that you either love or you're kind of disinterested in. They definitely blended a lot more of that jazzy style within the progressive rock, trying a lot of very different techniques, using polyrhythms, going all over the place in the musical landscape. But whether or not you like the music, one has to at least sit back and appreciate the musicianship and the art and the craft that went into all of their albums. That was until The Missing Piece that came out in 1977. This is where the band started to really kind of reevaluate themselves. Throughout their entire career, they were always just fine with not having a very large fan base, but having a very loyal fan base. Those who love them a lot, and they loved them for what they were doing. And so when they started to touch their toes into more of the accessible style of music and musicianship, there was a little bit of a backlash. A lot of their fans didn't quite take to this new style of music, and they figured with their follow-up of Giant for a Day, with the next year of 1978, they thought, okay, maybe they're going to come back to their roots. Well, unfortunately, they dove right into the accessible pop rock style of music, and what we get is just a mishmash of a band that is trying to infiltrate that popular landscape with a history of being very loyal to their fans. So let's actually dive into this album and kind of analyze track by track just exactly where this band went wrong. So we start the album with Words for the Wise, and right off the bat, we know exactly what we're getting into. It is a pop rock straight up album. It's very simplistic. The guitars lead this song through with very little change throughout it. There's a little bit of a backing harmonies, and this is really the only track where we have any kind of a harmonization within the vocals with all the members coming through. That was one of the things that I loved about Gentle Giant, is their use of vocal harmonies. This really is the only song to use that technique, and it's not even used overly that well. It's more used as a flavoring as opposed to a star performer on this. The bass line and rhythms in this, within the keyboards and the bass, that's kind of fun, and I kind of like that sound that they have, but the execution of this and the oversimplification of things just run the song dry. And that bridge with the keyboards and the guitars near the middle of the track just leaves a lot to the imagination. There's not a whole lot going on, and it's almost like a kind of an obligation to the listener as opposed to an organic bridge throughout this. The overall effect is that it's very meaningless and it's very hollow. So let's just skip on to the next track. Thank you. So this song isn't actually all that bad. I kind of like how this song is structured, where it's introduced with just the guitar, and the guitar work by Gary Green is actually really well done. I like his use of harmonies within this, and I like how the song builds off of that. So he introduces the main root of the song, and then we have the drums coming in, and then we have the bass line, and we even have more of a lead guitar coming on. And Derek Shulman's vocals on this track are very clean and very crisp. Overall, this song is very pleasant song. Something that I could hear more on like a B-side to a popular song, something from like a Supertramp or Fleetwood Mac, or any kind of that pop rock that we have within the late 70s. But for a Gentle Giant, it is kind of a scratch your head kind of a what is it doing here. So let's just move on to the next track. And If Thank You was a pleasant song and one that I didn't mind listening to, Giant for a Day does a complete 180. This song is just, ugh. Here we see exactly where that pop scene from the late 70s really infiltrated this band and almost took them hostage. By even kind of declaring this as Giant for a Day, like be the band for a day and this is what we get, it's just bleh. Derek is putting on a very strange kind of an accent throughout this, and where before it used to enhance the song, this is just kind of slogging it down. It sounds very corny and very unoriginal even. And that two-note rhythm of the entire song is just oversimplified to almost like cutting right to the bone of a song. I mean, I've heard country and western rhythm sections that are a little bit more complex than this. It's like Gary on the guitars is just playing within this confined box and you can feel him being squeezed like, guys, give me a little bit more space to breathe here. This is just insane within the rhythm section. Even when he tries to do something new within that key change, within that choral reprise, it just doesn't work because there's nothing there to grab onto. The root just isn't interesting. And that annoying playout of Giant for a Day, I really want to skip this song when we come into that last part because it reprises way too often. And I'm just like, nope, that's enough, I'm skipping it. So let's go on to the next track. Luckily, we're on to Spooky Boogie, and Spooky Boogie is one of the better tracks on this album. It is a purely instrumental one, and it definitely captures on that kind of fun Halloween song. Something that reminds me of almost like a children's haunted house or a children's fun house, where they're trying to be a little bit on the spooky side, but it never quite gets to that dark atmosphere of the Halloween. It was always that kind of fun atmosphere. So I can't really demonize or criticize the song because at least it knew what it wanted to be and played exactly that. Let's go on to the last track of the first side. Hopefully it ends on a more high note. Oh boy. Okay, Take Me. So if Spooky Boogie knew what it wanted to be, Take Me has no idea what it wants to be. It starts off with the verses being more in a minor key and then switches up into a major key when it comes into the chorus. And this could work. This style can yield some really great music. But coming off of the coattails of Spooky Boogie, where everything was more in that fun, spooky atmosphere, when we come into a minor key within the Take Me, it ushered in pretty well, but then when we switched the key into a major, it was just very strange and it didn't quite work. Ray Shulman on bass and Terry Minner on keyboards really don't know what to do with this song either. They're just kind of playing what they think needs to be played within the structure of the song, but they don't really know where to go. And because of that, the song goes nowhere near the end. And when we come into that kind of play out, nothing happens. And the first side definitely leaves you wanting more with not wanting any more, right? Like, it's like not enough to really savor anything, but it's almost too much of what we don't want. So at least we're halfway through. At least, we're not getting any worse. Hopefully. Okay, I have no idea what the band was trying with this one of Little Brown Bag. The song would be a fun poppy song for the time if Derek didn't know his limitations of the vocal. When he gets into that Little Brown Bag, it sounds almost like somebody at a karaoke bar that's trying to hit some like really obscure note but never quite hits it. So as an audience, you're sitting there going, you're trying your best. Yay! Please never do that again. And this song actually starts off pretty well with John Weathers on the drums putting a good foundation for this song down. But then it just kind of gets cut short. And there's some really fun background sounds and background noises in the song too that really help the song grow. But they're so quiet and they're so muddled that everything else is being put to the front and it doesn't really matter. So what could have been a really interesting and fun song just ends up being a mess near the end. Okay, skipping it.
Friends, this is a song to thank you all for being my good friends.
Right on to Friends. And much like the second song from the first side, this second song from the second side is much kind of like the flip side to Thank You, where it's more of an acoustic ballad with the acoustic guitar, and it's a nice little ditty, and Derek on the vocals meshes very well with Gary's guitar work here. The song blends very, very well, and as a song on its own, it works. I like it. I enjoy it. But the odd thing about this song, and this is, I think, the key to why this album just doesn't work, is at the root of this song, it is the band thanking their fans for being with them. You know, they're friends. We are the friends. And pairing this song with Thank You, the two songs I think go hand in hand because of this. So we've got a Thank You and we've got Friends. And both of these songs, you can hear the appreciations from Derek throughout this song. And he's saying to his fans, thank you, you guys are my friends. You've been here for through thick and thin. You've been here from the beginning. And we thank you for that. We know we're not necessarily that most accessible band. We know that we're more of that avant-garde. We're playing to the wings. And we know this. You know, we're not really here because of the money. We're not really here because of the fame or the glory. We are here because we want to make good music. But then we get this album and these songs that are on it. And it kind of flies in the face of that. Because of that, it's really hard to like this song or these songs, even though these are more of the highlights on the album. So this really is kind of that cringing point on the album for me, where I can't appreciate the songs, even though the message is in a good place. I need to switch the song now before I just work myself into more of a depression here.
No stranger, no stranger, no danger in your home. It's walking.
No Stranger. This is another pop rock song that would fit very well on any of those B-sides from those pop rock bands from the late 70s. It's not too hard, it's not too soft, it's right in the middle of the road, it's very accessible, very mainstream, and just there. It's very, very formulaic, and because of that, it brings down that organic feel, and it just does not work. But I mean, as a pop song, as an accessible song, as a song you put on a party and people aren't really going to say this is too much for me, yeah, it gets thumbs up. As a Gentle Giant song, this song sucks. Next song.
It's only goodbye.
It's Only Goodbye. Okay, admittedly, this, for me, is the highlight of the album. It has a very great guitar hook, and one that I really, really like to listen to. Unfortunately, for me, that's all this song is, and they just repeat that hook over and over and over again. It's kind of that electric ballad as opposed to an acoustic ballad. Everybody else is just kind of playing a backup on this song. There's really no real additions within any of the keyboards, within any of the drums, within even the vocals itself is just kind of there to provide a little bit of flavor, and at least to provide that context for the song as well. The main point of the song is that it is a guitar hook. I feel like even though they do that key change near the end of the song, as most every song on this album does, I feel like it's not even needed on this track, because the outro guitar work is probably even better, and I feel like had they left that key change out of it and just prolonged the guitar outro, it probably would have been a lot better. But fortunately, that's all we get here. So we only have one more song to go. Let's finally finish this album, because so far it's just been a mess. Rock Climber! I've got nothing to say about this song. It's unoriginal. It's repeated the same themes that we've already heard on this. It is the accessible pop rock from the late 70s. without even being overly all that original as well. And that's probably why this album didn't get any radio time at all. It's just, I have nothing really to say about this track. It's really no wonder why people were turning away from it. Those who knew about Gentle Giant wouldn't tune in at this point of their career, so there was really no need for them to rediscover them. And those who love Gentle Giant were listening to this and thinking, this is exactly what we never wanted from the band. This is why, we went to bands like Gentle Giant, because we were listening to very accessible, very repeatable, and very unoriginal music. So, yeah, Rock Climber really kind of puts the face on this album of just what is wrong with it. And with that, we're finally done with Giant for a Day. And oh god, even though this album is, just over 40 minutes, it feels like a whole day has gone by when listening to this. It's really that accumulation of why people went to progressive rock to begin with. We wanted originality. We wanted, thought-provoking themes and complex time signatures. We wanted those polyrhythms. We wanted those avant-garde styles of playing. We didn't want accessible mainstream pop rock music that we could turn on the radio and listen to. Now, I know the band was trying to get more radio play. We know that the band was trying to reinvent themselves, because by the late 70s, there wasn't a whole lot for progressive rock to really dive into. Bands were getting criticized for doing new and innovative things. People didn't want to hear those big, long epics, new wave and punk and electronical sounds were coming down the turnpike, and people were gravitating to that. So a lot of those bands within the late 70s were having to reevaluate themselves. I mean, yes, it put out Tornadoes, and Genesis, with a little bit of success, put out And Then There Were Three. Both of these albums came out the same year as Giant for a Day. But where these two bands at least stuck to their core and, tried a little bit more on the accessible side of things by shortening up their songs and tightening up their musical playing, Gentle Giant, on the other hand, went way too poppy, way too fast. And I think this is why the band went out on such a low note, unfortunately, with this being their second last album. Hopefully, more bands could kind of take this for a warning. When you're trying to reevaluate yourselves, kind of think back to why your fan base was listening to you in the first place. If you want to reinvent yourselves, I say go for it. I think that providing new flares and new energy to a band does nothing but good things, so long as you don't lose yourself along the way. And I think that's why a lot of bands fail. So, that's about it for Giant for the Day. What did you guys think of this album? Did you love it? Did you hate it? I mean, for a pop rock album, it isn't that bad. But for a progressive rock album, this album sucks. So again, let me know what your thoughts are of Giant for a Day down below. And what other albums do you think I should feature on Fallen from Grace? Let me know once again by commenting below. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. You guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.